today is special, but I say this every time because it is actually the last episode of the season, and what human nature is to always save the best for last.
Wow, that's a huge compliment.
Yeah, it's partly saving the best for last, and partly it wasn't working out.
Yeah.
And we were struggling to figure this out, and we finally figured it out. So guys, I have the head of editorial content for Vogue India, Rochelle Pinto. Welcome, Rochelle. I'm so glad you finally made it.
I know, after so many like missed flights.
I know, and the airline changing the flight.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know, so many things.
But I feel like it was meant to be, you know, it's just like really built up the anticipation, and I'm so excited.
And you know what, I was like, obviously I was disappointed when like it didn't work out on the earlier dates, but somehow I knew this was going to happen at some point. Yeah. And I was anyway going to save you for last in terms of like when we air it. So then I was comfortable. I was like, it will happen.
Once we make a commitment, you know, we follow it through. So
yeah, that's really nice to know, because you know that's not common, right?
Oh,
in fashion or film. Yeah, it's true. So it's really a big compliment, and it says something about you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you for being here. Honestly, it's an honor and a privilege to be speaking to you. Also because you're super nice.
I don't know why people say that. I don't think I've been accused of being nice before, but like
you're being accused of being nice because of the position you hold. Because this position, infamously, not in India, but all over the world and maybe other parts of the world, infamously, people are known to not to be as friendly. They may be really nice people, but maybe they're not as approachable or whatever, you know? And I think that you are, you're very amiable, you're very easy to speak to. I think that's what's probably the difference.
I love this because I feel like my close friends would be like, you, approachable? What's going on? Like, so it's maybe contextual, because
it is
usually,
contextual,
usually like I said, people don't accuse me of being nice or approachable. But I'm glad that I'm at least able to be that in this position, in this context. So,
yeah, amazing. And I think that represents the magazine really well too, right?
I think it was very clear in my mind that, you know, we live in a time where everybody has a voice and everybody wants to feel that equity. So they're no longer willing to just, be preached at.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
And that's not even the space that I come from mentally. Like, I thrive in democratic environments where everybody's able to contribute. And it was a very natural fit for me to bring that energy to Vogue, but I have to say that was the Vogue that, you know, my first stint 11, 12 years ago.
Yeah, first you were at Vogue as what? As 11 years ago, as what?
Yeah, I was hired to be a digital writer, a digital fashion writer.
Okay.
It was on the back of a pretty notorious column that I used to do for the Hindustan Times, which under no circumstances would run today. I would get cancelled in like
3 seconds.
3 seconds, exactly.
Nobody has tolerance anymore, yeah.
And nobody knows how to take a joke, but also I was allowed to get away with a lot. But now looking back, I cringe a little bit. And I'm so glad the internet wasn't as, prolific back then. So there aren't any vestiges of what I wrote. But yeah, I joined as a junior fashion writer. And it was exactly this environment. Maybe I was so young that I was a little intimidated because there were these powerful, strong, talented women.
Right.
And I felt like, just keep quiet and listen and learn.
Yeah.
But I think this was always, at least in Vogue India, this was certainly always the atmosphere.
That's nice. That's good to know.
Yeah, like.
But you've come full circle. 11
I really
years later,
have.
now you're the head of Vogue in India, essentially.
Yeah, it feels surreal, but at the same time, like, I'm very aware that this is a job. It's a fantastic job. It's a really thrilling job. It sparks, the neurons are firing every day. But it is a job at the end of the day, which I have that sort of.
I just want to put this into context for people who because head of editorial content might be a little confusing. Basically, Rochelle is the Indian version of Meryl Streep from The Devil Wears Prada. Okay. So that's what she is. It was a position that was called the editor before, and now it's called the head of editorial content, just to clarify that. Because it is a new name for this position, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask, what does Vogue mean to you? What does it stand for in terms of what they are trying to do company-wise on that level, and personally, what does it mean to you?
You know what, it's so gratifying to work in Condé Nast and to work for Vogue, because I always consider myself a journalist. When people ask me what I do, I always say I'm a journalist. I never offer any more information unless they ask.
Right.
And Vogue very deeply believes in journalism, and that is something that Anna herself, has held that mast, and it is a place for journalists. So for me, Vogue is really a credible voice. It remains, I believe, the most relevant voice in fashion, and it is now expanding into so many more areas that represent what women today care about.
Yeah.
Because I think that for a very long time, Vogue did all of these different things, but people would only look at who's on the cover, what is the fashion. But Vogue was always covering culture. Vogue was always supporting not just young designers, but young artists in different spheres. It was always providing a platform for the best writers in the country and in the world to have their pieces published.
Right.
And that is what we're continuing to try and do. A lot of people don't know this, but like Vogue also has a sense of humor. Anna herself is hilarious. She has that dry British humor, and she'll just like drop a line and has everyone stopping and laughing. So what we're trying to do in an Indian context now is really expand the universe of Vogue beyond what I call the bubbles of Delhi and Bombay, which in many ways are oversaturated. In India, we're trying to discover what is the new Indian vibrance, which are the new cities, what are the new cultural centers, how can we really represent our culture in a global fashion, but getting down to the roots in a way that feels very authentic. And I know this word is bastardized and completely overused. So it is a work in progress in trying to find like what is that authentic voice, but certainly being aware of what it means to be inclusive, what it means to be aspirational but also democratic and not talk down to people and really give people hope in a world where I feel increasingly we find ourselves weighed down.
Yeah.
In my first editor's letter, I said that I'm so grateful to be leading a cohort of talented people whose job is to inject a little bit of beauty back in the world.
Yeah.
Because that's
we
what
need that,
we
right?
need that. That's what we're craving.
Yeah, we need positive news too.
Exactly.
We need beauty too, because now especially with social media, like hardcore news also makes it to social media.
Exactly.
And it's always like negative news that gets the maximum press.
Exactly.
And it really bogs you down, honestly.
It really does.
So everyone can do it with a little bit of beauty.
That's what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
A little bit of it's a little bit of escapism, but it's sort of held down by these fantastic stories about real people, pushing the boundaries in whatever their respective spheres are. That's what we're trying to do. And like I said, it's a work in progress. I'm deeply aware that this is a long journey. I'm a very impatient person.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I need everything done yesterday.
Yeah.
But I have to kind of ride this wave and see where it goes.
So I see that. I see like now on your Instagram, I don't know if it was there before, but there's hashtag Vogue Culture, hashtag Vogue Beauty, and there are other hashtags too. So I guess you are trying to get into different aspects of life and of luxury and of everything, right, in India.
I feel like today the biggest luxury is time, right? If you can get someone to spend that time with you instead of looking at that email or watching Netflix while they are on their emails or vice versa.
Which is all of us.
Exactly.
Doing like 5 things, 4 devices are open and we're like...
And not listening to anybody or not really immersing yourself in any one thing. If we can get people to spare 5 minutes of their time and completely immerse in our world, for me, we've won. That is the win, right?
That's true.
And I recognize that there are people who might come to fashion through culture or might discover something in the travel space through fashion. And we have to be able to invest just as much in all these different buckets because, I mean, even you, Pernia, you're deeply interested in fashion, but you're also a mom, you also travel a lot, you have all these businesses, you're an entrepreneur, you have such a fantastic...
I dance,
You dance, you have such a fantastic sense of like, what is hot, what is fresh. And if I am only shoving one thing down your throat...
I have various interests.
Exactly. After a point, you're going to be like, you know what?
It's boring.
It's boring. Like, this is so unifaceted. So Vogue was always that. I think that what social media has allowed us to do is also platform the other parts of Vogue. It's like a buffet, maybe the main course gets all the attention, but there's chakna here, and there's some like interesting salad there. Exactly. All my references are around food, so I just keep bringing it back to that.
I'm very happy with that. Obsessed with food also. My Instagram feed is also obsessed with all food.
Oh my God, don't even get started. You know I had to like scarf down a banana right before we started, right? Because I was hungry. But that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to like platform the entire buffet of what Vogue has to offer so that everyone can find something that resonates with them.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, now I'm going to ask something fun, which I think people actually, no, I want to know.
Okay.
How easy or hard was to get this job? Because
Yeah.
when there is like not a rumor, but when there is noise in the industry that this position is open, that position is open, then everyone gets to know through word of mouth and etc. And then everyone starts applying
Right.
for this position. So how hard or how easy was it for you to get this job?
I would say the hardest thing was kind of being quiet about it and keeping the secrecy of the process.
Yeah.
It was a very grueling process in that they took it very, very seriously. Obviously, this role carries with it so much weightage. And I was interviewed by multiple people. I had to do a whole bunch of projects and assignments. And it was very eye-opening because I was able to speak to people from different parts of the world and get a global perspective of what Condé Nast is trying to do and what they would like for Vogue to be, but also bring a lot to the table. And I was so grateful for that. They allowed me so many opportunities to express my vision. They kept saying, what is your vision? What is your vision?
Exactly.
And in the beginning, I was like, how do I even articulate this? Like, it's in your head, but the articulation has to be precise. And I went through, I think by the end of it, I had done like 3 or 4 assignments, and they were deeply personal, but also with what am I trying to do with the magazine. And none of it was like, oh, show us your CV and what have you done in the past.
That's just like step 1.
Exactly.
That's just like, are you even worthy of this process?
But I have to say, throughout this process, there were people in rooms where I wasn't present saying my name and saying, we believe this is the right person for the role.
Which is so nice, right?
Which blew
that
me
kind of
away.
Credibility, you built it in your career. Yeah.
I feel very grateful because I don't know how it happened, but that is how this job came to me. It was people advocating for me. When I wasn't in the room, I didn't even know that this job was up for grabs. Like, it came to me perhaps a little before most of the other people found out about it. And throughout, I had champions who were, on my side. And I really feel like that made a lot of it much easier because I knew there were people in my corner.
Right.
It was a nerve-wracking process, and it took very long.
But all's well that ends well.
I hope so. I hope they're happy.
So on your first cover, you had these 4 beautiful models, 2 who've been around for very long and 2 who are newer.
Yeah.
And the theme was sisterhood. Now, is sisterhood a theme you want to take forward in general while you're at Vogue?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I truly believe that we've never seen women collaborating and mentoring each other and sponsoring each other in the way that we are seeing now, both in pop culture and in our daily lives.
Right.
There was a point where women were all fighting for the same seat at the table. And so sometimes you would find that your worst enemy in any environment was actually the other woman, when she should have been the one understanding where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And I feel that in the past year or so, that has shifted quite dramatically. Like, women realize that if we all hold hands, we can take the whole table. We don't need to we don't need to be fighting for the one.
Fight for it,
Exactly. And I see that, and it really started with, like I said, the way I got this job, it really started with women saying my name and saying that I believe she's the right one for the role.
Right.
Without any sense of, oh, if I put her up, then I'm, not getting that opportunity myself. So for my first issue, I know it's a fashion magazine, I know it's Vogue, and I know people were expecting something like, I mean, there are so many different expectations, right? But what I really wanted to do was send a message about who we are as a company, who I am as an editor, what I believe in, so the philosophy of it. And the reason why we picked these women from different age groups is that very often you see women siloed as in, okay, if you're young, you're hot, you're beautiful.
Then you're a model, then you belong on a cover. But if you're not, then you're so-and-so.
Exactly. And also if you're young, no one cares about what you have to say. You're hot, that's all you need to be, right? And if you're older, oh, you're wise, but are you beautiful? Yeah, your time is done.
They're
so I just wanted that mix. And I also didn't want them to be separate. I wanted them to be together because I wanted us to confront our own prejudices. That when we look at a face, and there was a lot of that, right? When we started, oh, she looks like a mom, oh, she looks like the other one's mom. And it's like, why? Why can 2 women...
But even if she does, what's the big deal?
First of all, but why can't 2 women be in the same space of different ages and not have a familial connection? Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be colleagues? Why can't we be allies? Because I see it right around me. I see women who are much older, who have very young friends, and they go on holidays together. And they seek each other out. So I wanted that energy to be captured in the cover. And of course, the comments came, oh, she's looking like an auntie, or this is looking like this. And I was like,
but you
it's
can't
fine.
please everybody
No, but I
anyways,
wasn't
yeah.
trying to please everyone. I just wanted people to confront their own prejudice. That when you look at women, you hang so many labels on them.
Yeah.
You would never say the same thing if there were 4 men on a cover of different age groups. You
No,
wouldn't
you
say,
would
oh, he
not.
looks like his dad.
No.
You just be like, yeah, these are 4 accomplished people.
Yeah.
And what was so beautiful to watch is even at the shoot, right, the younger models were hanging around, even though they were done with their shot, they were hanging around, they were watching Madhu and Meher, and they were just like, oh my God, they're so amazing, they're so beautiful, this is such a lovely moment.
They're iconic.
Exactly.
Madhu and Meher are iconic. So I
Exactly.
would sit and watch them model because like, that's like a privilege.
It was a privilege. And we felt that sisterhood on set. Everyone was kind of helping each other. Everyone was supporting each other. When somebody was feeling a little insecure, the others were like, you're amazing. You know, there was that energy was palpable.
Yeah.
And for me, that really set the tone for the year.
Yeah.
So I mean, sisterhood is something I truly believe in as a human being. So that will definitely be the
a part
underlying
of what you
theme.
do. Yeah, yeah.
But for this year, it is something that we want to push through in all of our issues in some way or the other, through the people we cover, through the kind of age diversity we're trying to bring in, through the kind of gender diversity, even like demographic diversity. Like, it's very important for me that if it says Vogue India, it truly represents India.
Yeah, like you said, more than Delhi and Bombay.
Exactly.
There are other parts of India also.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's cool is that there are parts of India that I, as someone who's lived my entire life in India, I'm discovering through the lens of the people that we feature.
Yes, because like in India, it's endless.
It's
if
endless,
you start traveling and discovering cultures and heritage and craftsmanship and talent and design and design history from every region, you could be an editor for 30 years, you'll still be doing it. You know what I mean? Which is, isn't that such a privilege to live in a country that has kind of heritage?
Exactly. And that's
so
what
exciting.
I mean. That's what I mean by injecting beauty back in the world, because I feel like we get bogged down by the mundane.
Yeah.
And that's what, in my opinion, the role of Vogue is to remind you of the beauty that you're surrounded by.
Exactly. I did want to ask about the other digital cover choices. So you had Tripti Dimri.
Yeah, she was on our print cover.
She was on a print cover, okay. So Tripti is a choice, according to me, as an outsider, is a choice which is a little more obvious because she's become the sweetheart of India. She's a national crush. So you're really like targeting somebody who is like the it girl of the moment in that sense, you know? So I get it. I understand that, you know, she would be an obvious choice in that sense. And then you had Imran Khan. He was on digital.
He was digital, yeah.
And Imran Khan is the opposite. He's not an obvious choice at all. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's very hot.
Yeah.
And has always been. But he's not been doing a lot of work right now.
None, actually.
You know, he's not the current national crush of India as Tripti is. So it's actually for like choosing on one hand somebody who's super popular right now, and getting a lot of searches. All of a sudden her Instagram has gone to millions.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, for another cover, choosing somebody who's really like not the obvious choice. So how does that work? Is that a balance you want to create going forward?
I think
surprise people and then like
I hope we always surprise people,
yeah.
you know. Even if they hate it, I hope it's surprise and then we hate it.
Because you get eyeballs, right?
Yeah.
A surprise is good, I guess.
I think because we're so inundated with information all the time. I mean, everybody can host a shoot, like a fashion shoot in their home with the phone, and you know, like it really is about figuring out what is in the zeitgeist or what is simmering under the surface. Like with Imran, interestingly enough, when we approached him for the issue. It was for the print issue.
Okay.
It was meant to be in the March-April issue with Tripti. It was an inside shoot. We were stunned, he said yes. He was stunned, we were asking him. And he was like, but why? And we said, you know, we can sense that there's this undercurrent of people talking about you. They want you back as his niece's or his cousin's wedding had just happened.
Right.
He was being seen a lot and people were
and
like...
he's looking great.
He's looking great. People were like, bring Imran Khan back. So we thought, okay, you know what, and actually this was before the wedding happened. There was this undercurrent because I think what happened is Zeenat Aman posted and he commented on the post.
Okay.
And somebody started commenting like, you know, you next, your comeback next. And he just, Imran being Imran, cheekily said, if this comment gets like 1,000 or whatever, like 1 million likes, you know, I'll make my comeback. Completely joking. Absolutely no seriousness there. Pernia, people were rabidly hunting down this comment so they could like it. People were like sharing it, saying, this is happening. So we knew that there was something simmering under the surface. So we thought we'd put him in the March-April issue because March is also Women's Day is in March. So in our minds, we thought this would be a gift to women, you know. Here is Imran Khan, everybody's
looking amazing.
Yeah, looking amazing. Everybody's favorite from the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And when we finished the shoot, he was lovely. All of us were like, wow, this dude has not aged at all.
Yeah.
And the shoot was great fun. He looked amazing. And then it just started to build. And then his cousin's wedding happened.
Yeah.
And then people were just hungry, right? So it was a complete...
Oh, so you later decided
yeah,
that
we were just
from
like,
an
you know
inside
what?
story, this is going to become a cover.
So I was like, let's just
Yeah.
go with it. Because
Yeah.
everyone's talking about him. We might be able to catch that crest
Wave before it hits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I remember we were thinking of the cover line, and I was like, let's not even put it, because he told us that in the story, he talks about how he's beginning to consider a few projects and he wants to do things that only make him happy. He's currently reading a few scripts. So I said, let's not use his name. Let it be a mic drop moment. And it just said, he's back.
Yeah.
And people went wild. Like, that cover went viral. And
Oh, really?
Because people were just like, I've never had people from my own office. Like, if you work at Vogue, you kind of get jaded, or
You take it for granted. You take it for granted, wherever you work.
The number of women who came by my cabin, knocked on the door and said, thank you for the Imran Khan cover. I've never seen that happen before.
Yeah.
So that was great. And then I met him randomly on the street, and he was telling me how his phone, he had to hide it because it would not stop ringing, and he got like some 25 ad offers the same week.
Oh, that's amazing.
So yeah, so it was just like,
See the power of Vogue, guys.
It is the power of
Yeah.
Vogue. It's something that we can, we really have to be very careful about how we use it.
It's a responsibility.
It is a huge responsibility.
I did want to segue into that. Like, this position comes with a lot of responsibility. Do you feel a lot of pressure?
I don't, and I'll say why. Because in my mind, I always knew that this was going to be a great responsibility.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think it came to me at the right time.
Yeah.
Let me say that.
When you could handle it, basically.
When I could handle it, when I knew who I was.
Yeah.
And I didn't need Vogue to validate me. But so this is a healthy relationship where I'm like, yes, I happen to be leading Vogue, but I'm deeply aware that it's a team that I lead, and it's not like I'm not some queen sitting on a throne.
Right.
And then when I leave that environment, I go home to my cat and my partner or my parents in Goa who have no idea about this world and even less interest. Like, they're very happy for me, but they're like, okay, cool, we've got this whole other life going on. So that responsibility is the same responsibility to me that I brought to a lot of other jobs. It's just that here the stakes are a little higher. And so I have to be a little more careful about what I say, the commitments I make. I have that reminder that it's not Rochelle making a commitment, it's the editor of Vogue making a commitment. That is something that's new, and I'm learning, and I'm sure I'm going to make many mistakes.
Yeah, but you're human, and that's also beautiful.
Yeah, and I understand that.
Yeah.
And what I've learned, honestly, Pernia, I think the one thing that has helped me in good stead is I'm very happy to say sorry when I make a mistake. I'm not trying to pretend that, I'm infallible and how amazing am I. So I think that a little bit of humility, which I may not have had if I got this job in my 20s, but that humility of seeing the world and understanding that, there are many journeys, there are many highs and many lows, and you have to kind of be aware that right now you're on a high, 2 months later, everyone's going to be like, oh, I hated that issue, and like, oh,
they'll love some, they'll hate some. Some people will love it, some people will hate it. You can't really control that.
You can't control that.
You do your best and you put your best work out there.
That's what I tell my team. I said, all we can control is the effort that we put into it. We put our best, and how the world receives it is up to them. And I think the one advantage that I have is I was also always digital. So I think for me, really bringing that same quality, finesse, voice to the digital platform and making sure that Vogue is just as relevant, because I think people still think of Vogue as a magazine, and when they think of Vogue, they still think of these beautiful books with a beautiful fashion shoot and giant pages. I want to be able to translate all of that escapism and fantasy and genuine, credible journalism to digital as well.
I was going to ask that because do you feel threatened, or do you feel like, well, not threatened, I don't know if threatened is the right word because Vogue has been around forever, but do you think that you have competition now with new digital magazines? Like, for example, there's a magazine called The Perfect Magazine, which I follow and I love, and they're like a digital magazine from the West, and they cover like the fashion in the West, and I just love everything about their layouts. It's so cool, it's so easy to consume, because we consume everything on social media now.
Exactly.
And we consume everything digitally. In India, there's a there's like a online, I don't know if it's a magazine or like a publication or whatever called The Established, which is run by Shruti, who's also ex-Vogue.
Yeah.
And she's cool and she's doing great stories, not necessarily only on fashion, but on the broader, perspective of India and in different aspects, which is something you want to do too with Vogue. You want to take it more than just fashion.
Right.
Do you think these kind of like digital voices now are a competition for you guys? Or like how do you intend to like navigate yourself through this space now?
So when it comes to competition, Pernia, everything is competition, right? Sleep is competition. Because does someone want to like read the magazine or check out your Instagram, or would they rather just take a nap?
Yeah.
So I don't think of competition in those silos. I think that literally everyone is competition, and that's for me a very healthy environment. And I'm not saying this to be politically correct, but I really think that if everyone's trying to do a good job, then you have so many people to learn from, right?
Yeah.
I can read The Established and get some great ideas from Shruti, who I've never had the chance to work with directly, but we've both worked at the same time, and I admire what she's doing. Or for that matter, globally, because now it doesn't matter if you're based in India or you're based in
wherever,
San Diego, or you're based wherever, right? Like everybody is a global reader, a global citizen, and they're consuming content from all over the place. So for me, it's actually the most exciting time, because before maybe you had only 2 or 3 sources of inspiration. Now you have so many more sources of inspiration. You also have ChatGPT, who's making people writers, and you also have Midjourney that's making people artists, and you have all these apps.
AI taking your photos, or making your, you don't have to do anything anymore.
Exactly. And as Anaita once pointed out to me, she's like, we can just do a photo shoot for a celebrity, for example. We can do it in their house. Like the cover of Vogue now has to mean something really special, and we have to up our own standards.
Right.
And that's a great place to be in.
Yeah.
It's a great place where the bar has been raised, and so you have to constantly challenge yourself, because if I'm not being constantly challenged, I'll get bored and then I'll start phoning it in, and that's not a place I want to be in. So I'm not threatened at all. I love it, and I have deep admiration for all these people, and in fact, I'm eager to learn from them. One of the things that we started doing at Vogue after I joined, I started inviting people from the industry who could also be seen as competition to us to come to Vogue and talk to the team, and not just the Vogue team, but I invite all my colleagues to come in and just share with us their point of view. So Kshitij, for example, is somebody who invites.
Kshitij, yeah.
Kshitij is
Dirty
amazing.
magazine.
Yeah, and he runs, for all practical purposes, what one would consider competition. But I think we have so much to learn from Kshitij.
Like the take on fashion from Dirty Magazine's perspective as opposed to Vogue's perspective is very different in terms of perspective, right?
And because of that,
it's for the same industry, though.
For the same industry,
yeah.
And I think Dirty is relevant and needed.
Yeah.
Vogue is relevant and needed, and if we can get into a room and kind of share ideas and understand each other's processes, that we both will leave the room more enriched.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I'm trying to do. So it's not really just saying it for the sake of saying it. I truly believe.
You're practicing it.
Yeah, we're not competition. We're all pushing this forward, and there's enough for everyone.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the best quality will survive.
Exactly.
And that's a very good place to be in.
But you know what has been happening now with media and with magazines, digital, print, is there's a lot of like paid work going out now. So basically, brands are paying magazines to push stories about them, to write full features on them, to even put them or their brands on covers. Now, how important is it to maintain authenticity when it comes to original organic content as opposed to paid content? I do get that it's a business, and I understand that one needs to survive and make money, because it's really nice to be 100% organic, but it's not possible.
Right.
So how do you achieve that? And like I was a little put off in the like recently I had approached a magazine, not Vogue, another magazine, for a story that I thought would be really interesting for them. It has nothing to do with the show. It's for something else. And it was a really great piece of content, which I thought would benefit them, because as a publication, you're always looking for a really good story.
Right.
And then they send me a whole chart with like, this is how much we pay for this. We take this much money for this. And I'm like, is there no room for organic content anymore in media?
I understand what you're saying. I think the first thing that we try to do at Condé Nast is to be honest with the reader.
Yeah.
If something is paid for, we call it out very clearly.
You write it down. Yeah.
It's
Sponsored,
like
right?
Sponsored or
yeah.
whatever it is, like
Yeah.
advertorial sponsored, whatever the terminology is. At no point will we ever cheat the reader into believing that something is organic when it's not organic. And I'm so grateful to this company because even when something is paid for, the quality standards that Vogue would put on any of the, organic or editorial content still remain sacrosanct. So it's not that
you don't compromise on the quality of the work you put
not
out,
at all.
just because it's paid. Yeah.
And the brands have to understand that. And I think that what's great is that the brands come to us for that quality. So 99.9% of the time, they get it and they respect that. Because at the end of the day, if the reader feels cheated, it's like, why is this here and what is this form that it's in?
Yeah.
And of course, like I said, different people have different standards, but we try to maintain the same quality standard that we approach our editorial content with our advertorial content to the best of our abilities. Always call it out. I think media is going through a tough time.
Yeah.
There are so many more options, and a lot of the traditional forms of funding for media have been diluted or dried up, or now they're going to other areas, right? With the rise of influencers and direct to customer, you can post your stuff on Instagram directly. You don't really need to pay a media company, or you don't need to advertise with a magazine to get it out there. So it is a tricky time, and we are trying to evolve and we're trying to figure it out. And I think if you lead with ethics, there's definitely room for creating branded content that feels authentic and that doesn't feel like a lie. We're not always successful, but it's also important in those moments to introspect and figure out where could I have done better. And that's the thing about Condé Nast. They're constantly self-checking. It's like it's a very interesting space to be in because there's a need to always do better, and it really starts at the top. Like Anna's the first one to call out something if she feels like, oh, this is looking not editorial. No, absolutely not. It won't fly. Which is why this company has survived for as long as it has,
true.
right?
That's true.
And it's still the best in the business globally.
Exactly.
So yeah.
How do you plan on using social media influencers? Because love them or hate them or whatever it is, you really can't ignore them. Or I mean, brands have recognized that.
Absolutely,
they pay them a lot of money to push their products forward.
Absolutely.
Do you think as Vogue that is something you want to engage in as well?
So we do engage with social media influencers. I think the only nuance I would bring to the table is, are we engaging with someone because they're famous and because they have 3 million followers? Or are we engaging with someone who has something to say and has a point of view and is authentic in and of themselves? Like I know you had Sakshi on your your podcast yesterday. Now Sakshi is someone that I personally admire. I think her story is fantastic.
Me too,
I think the kind of inclusion she has brought into the fashion space is wonderful. How honest she is with her audience about whatever she's going through. So somebody like Sakshi was, one of our forces of fashion. She's definitely somebody we would engage with. So that's the only difference, that's the only nuance I would add to it. Social media influencers are hopefully also, they're people just like you and me with like multiple interests and they bring a lot to the table. It's just that we seek those who align
with ethos, brand ethos,
exactly. With people who are not just doing it to push brands or to make money or it's not just cold commerce.
They should also have a point of view.
Exactly. I think the nuance that we look at when it comes to engaging with social media influencers is the same that we apply for all of our content, right? It isn't just about covering somebody because they're famous. It's about covering somebody because they have a point of view, they have a philosophy, they have a unique positioning in the landscape. And there are so many amazing people who also happen to be influencers that we're very happy to engage with, and we do on a daily basis.
Nice. So what is the fashion forecast then of 2024? Like, what do you think are the trends that are going to be big this year in India? Let's just talk about India. What do you think the fashion forecast is for this year?
See, trends I feel are somewhat ephemeral in the sense that something starts trending on TikTok, it makes its way to Reels, and then the next thing you know, everyone's calling it like the mob wife aesthetic, cottagecore, garden core. And I have a team filled with Gen Z, so every day they're like, Rochelle, it's this core. I'm like,
It's so hard to
like
keep
yesterday it was this core, farm girl core, now it's cottage core, strawberry girl core, it's a bunch of stuff. What I will say is that I'm noticing, and full credit to designers for creating the awareness, I am noticing an increasing interest among, I would say, people of all income levels and interest levels in fashion, in craft, and understanding how things are made and where things come from. So I am seeing that as being new. I won't say it's a trend, and finding ways to wear Indian garments in a more accessible yet modern way is something that I'm seeing quite a bit of. Like whenever we do stories, if we do stories on, I don't know, like trousers, for example, or if we do stories on like button-down shirts, and we do a story on chikankari kurtas. The chikankari kurtas gets way more.
So you think Indian crafts are really at the forefront of the fashion forecast for this year?
I think people are
enjoying
becoming more interested. They're learning more. They also have more access. And I think that exhibitions like Sutra Santiti that was recently held in Bombay, or even what they're doing at the NMACC, they're able to just bring more attention to the wealth of craft that we have in this country. I feel like that is huge. I'm also seeing gender neutral clothing as becoming really big and bigger with every year that goes by, especially with Gen Z. I feel like I love the fact that you now go into, you know, any environment and you see the boys experimenting with fashion, and it's not just those boring like short pant belts.
Boys are wearing makeup very openly
I love
now.
it. I love it.
And they're doing makeup tutorials, and it's pretty awesome.
Recently we had a friend's wedding, and I went shopping with my partner, and he was looking at the draped kurtas. He wasn't even looking at the, the stiff sherwanis. He wanted to know, like, and he's a big guy. He's pretty, pretty alpha in that sense of not really experimenting too much. But I think that the permission that they've been given to really express themselves fully through fashion is something that I'm completely enjoying. And I love that it's also given women permission to not just be one kind of person. We can be completely eclectic if we want. Like today I'm wearing this jamdani cotton dress, and tomorrow I may wear a pantsuit, and on the third day I may wear shorts. And people not being bracketed by what they feel is like a way to present themselves is very new. And I hope that just...
So talking about trends, let's do something fun. I'm going to name the trend, and you give me your one-word opinion on it. Okay? So first is Barbiecore.
Over it.
Over it. Cargo pant.
Love. Super functional.
I love it too. Baby doll.
It's too Spice Girl. It's like Spice Girl Redux, no?
Okay, no. Office siren.
Problematic, I feel. I feel like as somebody who works in an office, that's problematic. But yeah, you do you. Everybody.
It could lead to major HR issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Cottagecore.
Has its place, yeah. I'm over it though.
Like grandma chic?
Yeah, I'm over it. I'm over it.
What about the comeback of crochet?
Love it.
Love it. Sheer clothing?
Love it. Love it. For men and women.
Yeah. And reimagined denim.
Love. Yeah. Denim is a classic. You can't go wrong.
Cool. But like if you do denim, guys, try and make it like recycled or whatever, because it can be a little, sorry, that's my little 2-second spiel for sustainability, because it can be a little like troublesome in that way.
You know, the jeans I own, and if I've had for like 9 years, and I have no reason to throw them out. So I think that when it comes to denim, if you invest in good quality denim,
you can have them forever.
Exactly.
And like reimagine means that like out of like, for example, if you have jeans, you make them shorts, you take that fabric, then you put it in a jacket. Like you could do cool things, like move it around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of trends, upcycling and sort of reimagined upcycled fashion is something again it's
huge, right? Yeah.
And what I love, Pernia, and I must say this, like the Indian designers, I feel, are really pushing the boundaries, because we have such fantastic textile designers in this country, and they are really pushing in this space of upcycled, recycled, reimagined fabric in general. Like the number of brands that now only work with waste fabric, and they're not going and ordering bales and bales of cloth, but they're going to factories and they're trying to stitch together
up what's left.
They're stitching together entire collections out of what's left, and using fabrics and materials. I won't even say fabric because that's too limiting. They're using like leather and canvas and
other things.
It's just, it blows my mind. That is what I'm most excited about, because I feel like that is the future of fashion. The ingenuity to create from what already exists rather than creating from scratch, but make it wearable, make it cool, make it accessible,
Yeah.
that is like deeply fascinating to me.
Yeah, and that's the present and the future. I feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think of this? Now, moving to a slightly different topic. See, a lot of these brands you named, a lot of other brands also in India that are prominent or not, are being bought over or invested in heavily by one or two big giants, retail giants in the country. Now, this is something that in the West is done by, say, the Kering Group and LVMH, and now that model is kind of moving towards India as well with brands. Is that good for our brands, or is it a good thing or a bad thing, basically? What do you think about that?
I think it's a nuanced approach. It's interesting because now many of these brands who would not have been able to do all of these different areas well, that's what a corporate brings, right? Corporates bring structure, corporates bring money, corporates bring business know-how.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you're a designer, you should be allowed to design. You shouldn't have to be bookkeeping. You shouldn't have to be thinking about merchandising. You shouldn't have to, like, those are things that other people do very well.
Right.
And that's what big corporates can bring. I think what is incumbent on the corporates is to ensure that when they come in with all this money and all this power and clout and the ability to help people expand, that they should do that with the best of intentions to allow that designer to really explore their space and not try and convert them into some sort of...
Or curb them or limit their creativity. I think that may happen sometimes.
I mean, it happens in all spaces, right? Sometimes creative people do need
curbing.
They do need guardrails. I mean, tell me about it. If I don't have
true.
deadlines, I'm never going to actually do anything.
Yeah.
But I think that if it's a healthy dance where both come to the table as equals, it could be fantastic.
In the best interest of the brand.
Exactly.
Then it works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the customer. Like,
and the customer,
at the end
actually.
of it shouldn't be that, okay, you know what, we want to make 50,000 versions of this, so let's make it cheap. And then, but you're still making the customer pay a lot of money for that. No, I'm coming to this designer because I believe in the quality, I believe in the brand, and I want the best possible version of it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that, again, it's all very new, so there's some time to go, and designers will find that journey. And of course, in all of these sort of revolutions, there are people who survive, and there are people who thrive, and there are people who kind of fall to the wayside. So, you know, we'll just see where this goes.
See what happens, because it is
goes.
quite new. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Oh, this is an interesting. I want to ask some fun things like, what's been your favorite cover of Vogue worldwide?
Oh, wow.
It'd be really hard to choose one, but maybe tell me one or two that just come to your mind right now.
The one that keeps coming to my mind is something that Vogue Taiwan produced. It was Leslie Sun, who is the APAC director of Vogue, who is fantastic. I work very closely with her, and I really admire her. She has an art background, you know, so her lens on fashion is always through like an art perspective. I highly encourage you look this up. It's by a photographer called Zhong Lin, and they essentially did a pollution issue.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
It was a lens on how the fashion industry is also one of the world's biggest polluters.
It is, yeah.
But if you see that, it's just pure art. It had
and what was the cover?
There were two covers actually. There was one where there was a model, and she had the tail of a mermaid, and she was like a mermaid, and she was immersed in this greasy oleaginous liquid, and everything was glittering. So there was something grotesque about it, but there was also something so beautiful. It was like a train wreck. Like you just had to stop and stare. So that was one that was very compelling, and it's an image that you have to sit with. And there's so much simmering under the surface that it really needs to take. You need to take your time with that, which all great art does. And they had another cover, and it's the same model, and her hair's all mussed up, and she looks really beautiful, and she's glowing, and she's licking a popsicle, and then you look into the popsicle, and you can see it's filled with bits and bobs.
Microplastics.
Yeah.
Oh my
exactly.
goodness.
And she's kind of licking it, and her hair's a little bit messy, and it almost feels like this is what the world will look like 20 years from now if we don't get our act together, right? You'll have, actually not even 20 years from now, kids are eating.
So it's already bad.
If you test, placenta, they're finding microplastics in it. So it was just such a powerful and bold commentary in a fashion magazine on how we are destroying the environment and how we need to be more mindful. I think that the way they tie that in together without being preachy, while still producing, stunning imagery, always comes to mind when you ask what is the best cover.
I really liked all the covers that Edward Enninful did. You know, his cover of all the black models together.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful image.
Right.
And it's so crazy that black girls and women have been modeling for very, very long now.
Right.
But still today, there's still
Right.
so much racism, right?
Right.
So it's just, even now seeing that together, all of them together on a cover,
Feels
it's not
new.
common.
Yeah,
it still feels
it
new.
feels
It's
fresh.
crazy. But some of his covers have been really, really iconic.
Yeah.
Who's a stylist you love at any of the Vogues in the world? Who's stylist or creative director, or like someone who shoots, who you think is just creates beautiful imagery?
I think Margaret Chang was, I mean, I wouldn't call her a stylist,
Right.
but I feel like what she consistently did with, I've already mentioned Leslie, so I'm not going to mention her again, but I truly think that Vogue Taiwan almost never gets it wrong. I think Margaret brought some really fantastic visuals, and she showed us a side of China that felt at once familiar but also fresh and new. And there was a poetic lyricism to everything that she did, which I deeply admire and would love to learn from. Edward is great. I think Choma is going to also do fantastic things at British Vogue. Yeah, they're just...
I loved the OG, Grace Coddington.
Oh my gosh,
Because
Grace is a
you know,
legend.
she's a legend.
She's
And
a
I just
legend.
felt like everything Grace did, all her editorials, it felt like you were watching a movie.
Yeah.
They were so cinematic.
Yeah,
Something
yeah.
so cinematic about the
Yeah.
way she put everything together, and she's really a legend.
I also love Vogue Poland. Let me just call them
Yeah?
out for a second.
Yeah.
Vogue Polska, they do some really powerful pieces, and their editorials are fantastic. So I think sometimes when we think of the Vogues, we think of the more famous ones.
Right,
and
like the US and British.
Yeah. But I feel like...
other countries are doing it really well too.
yeah, and they're doing it
Yeah.
on... I recently met Vogue Philippines, Pam Quinone, she's the fashion director there, and I feel like what they do and what Vogue Philippines does so well is that they bring their culture front and center. They're never apologetic about their culture, and that's something I hope to learn from and bring
that's
with
amazing.
India. Yeah, like they put, this woman who was from one of the most ancient tribes of the Philippines, and she's beautiful, completely covered in face tattoos. You know, the slow tattoo, the one that they hand poke. So their covers, I think, always teach me so much more about the Philippines than just a model in a garment.
Right.
And so there's so much to learn. I know I sound
Yeah,
very politically
because
correct, but like the more you
exciting
ask me, the
part
more I
is
get
maybe
excited.
that this brand of Vogue comes with such a legacy
Oh my
of
gosh.
amazing work and amazing things to be inspired by and to take on ahead, and also do your own thing, which is exciting.
And can I tell you, like one of the fun parts of being in a corporate is that we literally have a Slack channel where everybody shares their editorials. So you can spend an entire day immersing yourself in just the beauty that your colleagues around the world have created and being so inspired. It's like living in an art museum, but the art museum is actually on your computer, and there's art being sent in every day from different parts of the world.
That is exciting.
It's beautiful.
And
like
stimulating.
Sometimes I just get lost. I'm just like,
Yeah.
wow, what was the thought behind this? How did they do it? Like, who are
Yeah.
the photographers they worked with?
Yeah.
And to be in the presence of other creative people who are constantly trying to push the boundary, for me, is the most exciting thing about this job. And I love it. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, a fun thing now. Have people in India started treating you differently that you're at Vogue? You know how people
Not
are.
my friends,
No,
but
no, not your friends, not your friends and not your family. I'm
Yeah.
talking about people in the industry, in fashion and film, because that's who you interact with professionally
Yeah.
for Vogue.
I think I disappoint
how do
most of
they-
them,
How do
though.
they treat you different?
let's just say that, now there are a lot of people who know who I am and who make the time to have conversations with me. But I think I usually disappoint them because they may be expecting, as you said in the beginning, like
Yeah.
the Meryl
diva.
Streep, diva, and then I try very hard not to be that. Sometimes the opposite also happens if I'm in a bad mood, as it happens with all of us.
Yeah.
But yes, I have discovered that there are a lot more asks on my time than there used to be, and I'm really learning how to not say. One of my biggest problems is that my face and my brain, that highway is clear. So if I think something, you'll see it on my face
Yeah.
instantly. So
Yeah.
as part of my interview process, when they asked me what my weakness was, I was like, I don't have a poker face. That
Yeah.
is my biggest weakness. Because
Yeah.
I'm thinking, this person has no idea. And my friends are like, you are a billboard. You are a billboard neon. So I have to just find a way to elegantly say no and to remove myself from situations which I find like that I'm gonna be compromised in some way. So that awareness is something I'm still learning. And yes, to answer your question, a lot more people want to be my friend now than ever before.
It's crazy how people work, right?
Yeah, but I think that in many ways it is a transactional space, right? So I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
It's nowhere close to how Bollywood celebrities or any real celebrity has to deal with. For me, thankfully, it's a very small industry.
But even Bollywood celebrities,
Yeah.
if they are doing well and if their films are doing well, then they get friends and they get attention.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying all, but on the most part. And then if they're not doing well, and if nobody, then nobody's interested in them. It's
Exactly.
just sad, but it's
Exactly.
true. This industry a little bit works like this. Tell me, quickly before we leave, about Forces of Fashion, because I really thought that, just personally speaking, it was just really nice to meet everybody who's creating in the fashion industry in India in one room.
Right.
It was just really nice to just go and like, oh my God, I haven't seen you since then.
That's what we wanted.
It was just so nice
That's what we
because it's
wanted.
everybody who you worked with at some point.
Yeah.
And it's everybody who works in fashion. So what was the idea behind Forces of Fashion?
So Forces of Fashion is a global property that where the idea was to bring the readers into the space that we work with and kind of create opportunities for people to meet each other and really foster a collaborative environment. Now, it's taken on different forms all over the world, and in India this year we're going to have a very full calendar and an exciting new form. But last year it was, first of all, I had to do an event and put out my first issue in 30 days of joining.
Crazy.
Which, when my other HOEC colleagues heard that, they were like, what? I said, I'm not thinking about how do I do it because I might just get paralyzed if I think about it.
Right.
Let's just go. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
What I really wanted to do was bring everybody together, as you said, and I wanted to bring those people who don't typically come to events like this or who don't get typically invited to events like this, for example. So I wanted to bring people who have really contributed but may not have the most powerful PR agents, so you don't always hear about them, or they're doing their own thing quietly, but they're doing great work and they're actually
contributing to the industry.
Exactly. And not just focus on designers and Bollywood, but also focus on the image makers, the people behind the scenes, the fashion business guys. So it was intense. It was like for somebody who hates Excel sheets, I was looking at like 40 Excel sheets in multiple colors and just had in danger of getting an aneurysm.
Yeah.
But on the day, and I didn't realize how particular I was becoming until other people were like, okay, this is really being run like a very tight ship.
Yeah.
But on the day, my favorite thing to hear was people coming up to me like, oh my God, I met this person and I haven't seen them in so long. I was like, yes. That's what I wanted. I wanted people to, first of all, we wanted everyone to feel very special. Wanted them to feel like they belonged. And I wanted people to meet each other. And in a very, we're not asking you to do anything. There are no deliverables. You don't have to post. In fact, put your phone away and let us just allow you to immerse yourself in this moment.
Do you know how refreshing that is? Do you know how rare that is? Otherwise, you get 86 hashtags and reminders from events being like, please post this, please do this, please. I'm like, it's so stressful to go to this event.
Exactly. But I feel like exactly for that reason, right? Like we just wanted people to remember they're part of this community. This community is growing. And, it was, I think one of the wins for me personally, being from Goa, was getting Savio John to come.
Oh, I know, I love Savio.
Exactly. And the way people greeted him, first of all, he was like, no, Rochelle, like, I don't really leave Goa. And I fully blackmailed him. I was like, Savio, I'm from Goa. I need you there. Like, I need another Goan in the room, like, for support. And so, thankfully, I was able to blackmail him and he came. And the way people received him, like the joy with which they were like, Savio? And then I had people come to me and be like, how did you get Savio to come? I was like, emotional blackmail. That's how I did it. So it felt for the first time in a very long time, at least for me, like we were a community. And it wasn't, we're not there because it's fashion week or we have to pose or none of that.
It didn't feel like there was an agenda.
Exactly.
Which was nice.
Exactly.
That's what made it so special.
Just come and meet each other and have a great time and stay till you as long as you want. And people did. There were people till the very end, which, as you know, never happens. People come, they
do their thing,
they do their thing, take a photo and leave. But people were there till the very end. So I'm glad it was successful.
Oh, so nice. Okay, now in one word, what is it that excites you most about this year? It's going to be your first complete year at Vogue. Okay, maybe one word is too less. One sentence. What is going to make you what's making you really excited this year? What do you want to achieve this year?
For me, if we can make Vogue relevant outside of that very tiny microcosm that we've been speaking to all this time, that would be a huge win. If people talk about Vogue beyond just who's on the cover, if people talk about the stories that we have, that we invest so much time and energy in, I know it's not the one word you wanted.
No, that's okay. Please take your time. Yeah.
But if we can make Vogue relevant, let me put it this way, to a very wide audience who believes that Vogue fits into their lives, that would be a huge win for me.
And how do you measure that? With the amount of people who read the work you put out, for the amount of hits and likes and views? That's how you measure it?
And then there's a tiny nuance of how many people are reading what this Bollywood celebrity wore to this red carpet versus all the other stories that we care so deeply about and spend so much time on.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that shift happen, and we're seeing people be interested, and we're seeing people
engage more with that content.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And say things like, I saw this on Vogue. And it's not about who wore what to which red carpet. For me, that as a journalist, that's like, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, good luck, Rochelle.
Thank you. Thank you,
Pernia.
Pernia.
This is a big responsibility, and I think it's so nice that someone so nice is taking care of it. No, honestly.
This nice accusation, I don't know how to like handle it.
It's better than people saying that you're horrible.
I guess.
Think about the other way. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I guess.
Thank you. And you're changing that that preconceived notion people have about editors, which is also refreshing.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you're enjoying watching Fashionably Pernia. Don't forget to like and subscribe.